here. Um, but I think the Philippines might be the most beautiful place I've been. But I went to the
Oh.
island of Palawan. It's just
Mhm.
gorgeous.
I've never been. I should probably go, but I have not been yet. So
Yeah.
he says it's beautiful. He also, when he was in Vietnam, said that it was so pretty that that's where he would want to go. Um, if and when we were all old enough to be out of the nest, and
Hmm.
it's a lot cheaper to live over there. So he had inherited $1 million when we were younger, had never paid inheritance tax, so he owed the IRS a lot of money, and
Oh.
realized he also needed to probably leave the country, which we couldn't get student loans because he owed the IRS so much money.
Oh
It's a
my
whole
God.
different podcast after hours if you want.
Totally.
Yeah.
That sounds
So
like a first home IQ conversation, actually.
yes.
Well,
It's
let's
a it's a big driver of why Denise and I do what we do, just from
Mm.
what we lived through of like what not to do. So
Wow, that's so interesting. I do
mhm.
want to hear about that sometime. That's
Yeah.
um I want to frame up the conversation today, but I also want to let people join in so we can.
I'll get it going on my preamble here.
Okay.
Welcome to Mortgages with Millennials. Everybody that's come in so far, we'll give people another minute or so to trickle in. We're talking with Deborah Byrd about her past, present, maybe the future here today. I did want to say, Kristen, to kind of continue on this vein before everybody gets into the meeting. You were in Ireland last month. You have any travel plans coming up for the holidays? What's your schedule?
Oh, I don't want to travel so bad. I'm like so done with travel. The fall was like back to back speaking, and then I, for some reason, decided to go straight to Ireland. And yeah, it was amazing, but I'm so done. So I'm not even going anywhere for Thanksgiving. And I will eventually go visit my family for Christmas in Oklahoma. But what about you?
I I feel like I've been at home for 3 weeks over the past 6 months. So I'll be in my remodel zone. I'll give people a taste of what I'm living through here. We're like mid remodel stuff
Wow.
everywhere. It's kind of a mess,
But show
but
them the view though. The view is like the
there's your
thing.
view. There's your
That's
view.
so pretty.
Insane.
Okay, that's enough of that. Here we are in the Chrisman Commentary House. Welcome.
um
Well, so no travel. I have like nothing scheduled until I think I'm going to the ICE event in March.
mm,
There might be a Lenders One conference at the start of March before that. The ICE events in Vegas and the Lenders One events in LA. But yes, I'm in the same boat as you. Excited to be a homebody for a little bit,
mhm.
and settle in.
Yeah.
So
Deb, how about you? Any travel plans?
We are going to Houston the day of Thanksgiving. That's where my husband's family lives. So we're going to drive there in the morning and then turn around and come back just because it's still quite miserable to travel with 4 kids in a hotel when there's 6 of you. So we usually try to make that a quick day trip. But I'm kind of with you. I've been traveling a lot and it's mostly for speaking events. So you're in, like, you go to the airport, you then get rushed to an Uber, to a hotel, to the conference room, and then you're like rushed back to an Uber and you're back on the airport. So not like you really get to enjoy, the scenery or where
Mhm.
you're at. So I'm looking forward to just some slow time and just podcast listening and relaxing and not being shoved around airports.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but I have a hard time with that adjustment. Like I went to Buffalo for an event and I was basically on a flight all day and then spoke in the morning and then all day coming back that next day. And yeah, I'm like, I could have gone to New York, whatever, like take some time, but instead it's just
Mm,
back to back. And when I get home, I am that was last week, I think. And it's like, it's hard for me to now come into let's be calm and
yeah.
let's have routine. That
Yes.
throws me off.
Well, and thankfully the travel's been better lately. I don't know about you, and I usually go American. I've been told I should probably stop doing that, but the amount of flight delays, and I've had like the most random stuff where even my carry-on bag someone took and like walked off with, and I was like, "Oh my
What?
gosh, where's my bag?" I had a bag get lost, and it was like one of my biggest keynote speaking events, and I had no makeup on. I was wearing typical sweatshirt, jeans, tennis shoes, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to go on stage like this because I have nothing, and I had no time to stop. I'm like, this is gonna be a great intro, at least for this talk. But I've had like weird stuff like that go on where
Oh
I'm like
my God.
chasing down. I'm like, whatever dude just got my bag is gonna be really disappointed when he opens it because it's not gonna be his stuff. But we ended up getting it back, and but just flight delays and all
Yeah.
that comes with travel.
Oh, that sounds like a nightmare. One time I had enough delay. I was taking my dog to my parents' house and then the flight got messed up and I had to take my dog to the speaking event. Like I didn't have time to find a place to put her, like I had to go straight in. So but she didn't want to be in the audience. She had to be right next to me. So I had to take her on stage with me. And I was just like, this is what it
Oh my
is right now.
gosh, that's awesome.
I
And how'd
loved
she
it.
do? Did
She's
she do?
great. As long as she's
Wow,
next to me, she's like so well behaved, but I thought, maybe this could be a thing, but people
yeah,
didn't seem to react as much as well as I thought I would have.
that is impressive.
But yeah.
Wow.
Anyway, okay. Well, I want to frame this up. I am so excited to have you, Deb. You were our first founder friend with First Home IQ. So just so on board with the mission. You have been an incredible leader in the not just social media space, but generational trends. And so I'm excited today to talk about some of the trends around social media and of course millennials and next gen. And also, yeah, here's some like practical strategies on how we can be more effective with social media. So anything you want
Yeah.
to add, Robbie?
No, I'm really excited too because I think it's
Oh,
going to be great. I've been really excited about the conversations we've had the past couple weeks or even since we started this show. I've really enjoyed it. So today should be in a similar vein.
yeah. So I wanted to kick this off, Deb, by just asking, like for a lot of people, including myself, social media feels like a really stressful thing. And I feel like it's constantly changing, like what you're supposed to do. And what advice do you give people? Most of our listeners are loan officers or mortgage professionals and of course are trying to be effective with social media. What kind of advice do you give people that say social media is really overwhelming and makes me feel uncomfortable? Like, what is a good step to take?
Well, I'll give you the PC version, and then I recently made a post about the only way that my brain knew how to make this relatable across all generations and cultures is I'll save to the end. But I usually try to learn more about what makes it so stressful. Is it more of the overwhelmment of there's so many platforms and there's so many features to each platform and like knowing what works and um or is it the fact that you're showing up online and it's creating like a systematic way and process from when you're consuming the content, like how do I generate the ideas to then the creation to the distribution? And so I have to get really clear on what does stressful mean to them. And a lot of times it's just a lack of systems or process, or they're feeling like if I'm in LO, like that's a full-time job, how the heck am I supposed to be a content creator on top of that? And so sometimes it's just reframing what being on social may mean from what we're projecting it to be because of what we see others do. I use it as a way to teach. And I know, my past, I was a middle school science teacher and girls athletic coach, which was really just an excuse to like blow things up in a lab. Like I was never that student growing up that was like great at school and I could still be a big kid at the same time. But we would teach lessons, and instead of doing it in like the formal classroom, I look at social as just a medium that is, regardless of your opinion of social, for anyone listening, it is based off data where the human attention is. And so if you can remove that filter and like pressure that we put on ourselves of either being perfect or, having to say the right things or have perfect opinions, it's like we've got to give ourselves some grace that there is no perfect opinion and even expert opinions aren't perfect. And It's just sharing messages that are financial truth through the vessels of mediums that happen to be where most people spend their time. And it's free other than your time. And obviously there's, support. That's why we created Plug and Play SM is most loan officers and a lot of the big social influencers in the mortgage space out there, they don't do it all themselves. So it's, you can't eat an elephant all in one bite. You have to baby step it and first get clear on, who you are, what makes you different, and what are the misbeliefs or misconceptions out there that if you were to share, if your motive is pure, where you're just trying to educate and fill the gap of what people aren't taught in school, then you don't worry about how you look or sound because your focus is on the people you're serving. And so that's where I try to get, to the core of why do you want to be on social? Like, what are you trying to accomplish? And I get a range of answers. Like some tell me they want to be famous, and I'm like, we're probably not for you, because you can buy likes, you can buy followers, and sometimes people compare themselves to those who have. And I'm like, but it's not always real. And at the end of the day, we're trying to attract people to us. Like that's the power of a brand is that attraction, which also should repel the wrong people too. So there are going to be some people that aren't meant for you. That's okay. Um, but I think that's what is stressful is there's not a well-oiled system or process. They don't know what they're doing. They worry about how they look. They don't know if what they're saying is 100% accurate. So they lack confidence because they just haven't built that skill set. Now, the post I had made recently was, hopefully I'm allowed to say this, so you guys tell me
Go for it.
if it's okay. But
Yeah, cool.
for those who tell me that they're just uncomfortable, I'm like, was sex uncomfortable at first? Like, did that stop you from trying? Were you like, I'm just not going to do this? I'm not going to get good at it. Like, think about like middle school days, your first kiss or first French kiss, whatever. It's like, you're naked. Like, there's nothing scarier and more uncomfortable than that, but we all do it. Well,
Yeah.
most of us, there could be virgins on the call, but if you want it bad enough, yeah, me too, 4 times. If you want it bad enough and your motive is pure and that purpose of like, I'm just here to share truth, which could be, my truth could be wrong. Like there's, over time, sometimes your truth, you discover new things, but it's just your medium to educate what you know. And it also allows you to learn what maybe you don't know. So I kind of cringe when people say social media is like the root of all evil, similar to what people say about money. Cause I'm like, is it though? Like, it's actually an amplifier. Like the algorithms are so good that it knows what you want to see and you can train it to feed you what you want to learn about. It's you
Yeah.
sketch balls out there that are probably searching things you shouldn't be searching for. And then it shows you those things. So it's like, there's a balance to everything.
That's a fascinating comparison, because it does feel like you're naked when you're sharing something on social media. I mean, when you're putting yourself out there, and it is really uncomfortable. And I mean, that's inspiring to me. I think to think about it.
Yeah, because and that's why I'm like, I know it's not probably it's the way my brain thinks when I try to relate things that is relatable to all. And social media was my best friend when I went through a dark phase when I tried to push everybody else away. I am so thankful that I had social media where I could continue to learn from people like Dave Savage and Bill Hart and Dan Keller when I'm crying in my bathtub at night thinking I'm a failure. I'm like, I could learn from some people that even Tony Robbins and Bob Proctor, I didn't have to go fly and pay big ticket prices or
Mhm.
event tickets to go learn and work on me when I'm a mom of 4, and at that time they were, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So traveling wasn't in the cards for me, but I could use social as a way to learn from these giants and become a better version of me just by exercising the tool not for entertainment, but for self-discovery.
Mm. I also love what you were saying about being purpose driven in some way. And I just am coming off of a call with Dave on that was focused on purpose and profits, and how Sean Herrera was talking about how if you are focused on the purpose, the profits come. And he's a top producer across country. And I think that's the same thing here. If you're focused on or it sounds like what I'm hearing from you, I am I'm going to start this based on this call. So, but focused on delivering that purpose and understanding what your mission is, that is going to lead to the, you know, more positive results. And like you said, that's going to depend on what that goal is. But I really
Yeah,
like that.
usually the biggest thing to overcome is your your fear of approval of other people. When I really try to empower the people we work with, I'm like, I want you to value your own opinion more than the approval of others, which is a hard thing. Like it's more of a personal development thing when you're working on a brand and exposing your personal brand, because that today's day and age, it's never been easier to have a personal brand, but it's scary as shit because you feel naked. It's you being you. Like that is your personal brand. And what is it that your great, great, great grandkids, when they're, you know, you never meet them, but if they were feeling like they're lost or they don't belong and they keep being told their crazy great, great, great grandmother, this chick named Deb, everyone says that you're, you know, just like, I want them to be able to go on social and learn some of the lessons from me so that they can connect with me even when I'm no longer here on earth. You know, it's like it's that legacy that you leave behind, that is scary, and eventually you have to get okay with exposing those things. And I know what it's like not to be that way. Like I was the person who was kind of the fraud that wanted to pretend I had my shit together, perfect mom, perfect wife, knew all this about mortgages, and I was an extension of my identical twins team, the mortgage nerd. And so Denise and I are very different, but as an extension of her team, you know, she kind of played the mom role and would be like, you can't do that. You can't post that. Don't say that. And I've always been one to color outside lines a little bit and kind of push limits. And it got to the point where I felt so just restricted, where I wasn't being me online and I was playing small. And that's why it almost felt like a hollow victory, because I would get, you know, the attention or the likes or the business, but I was like, but it's not for the real me. And I do think there's that going on right now in the social space with even loan officers, is they all kind of project these mission statements that have been adopted by really regurgitation of what everybody else is saying, which I then press on them and say, is that really a value statement then, when everybody's saying the same value statement? You know, like it's not really unique
Mhm.
at that point. But I know what it's like to go through that process of like, you know, I mean, I share DNA with someone who's like a celebrity in the space. And I had to mentally be like, why me? Why would anyone do business with me? We both work for the same company, same loan products, same area. I'm like, what is my X factor? Like that's hard when you have an identical twin, you know, that you
Yeah.
sound alike, you look like. So I've been there and gone through that wrestling match of like trying to self-discover, which is why I love doing what I do now, is because I can see like my prior self evolving and watching in others. And it's so beautiful to see people just let go and be them and accept themselves for who they are. That's the most rewarding part of the journey of posting on social, is who
Mhm.
That's
people become.
It's been a really consistent motif on this show when we talk about social media, is people are like, what do I make? And it's, if you be yourself, that's going to lead to the best outcomes. Uh, I have to, well, last night there was a Super Bowl rematch of the Kansas City
Oh
Chiefs and
yeah, I watched it.
Eagles. And a common theme there, they kept bringing up that the Eagles quarterback, Jalen Hurts, would say, you either win or you learn. And it sounds like
Mhm.
that's a good takeaway for social media. Yes, you'll have the posts that something's right on the algorithm and it clicks and it blows up. Something doesn't work and you learn from that and you continue to hone your strategy. I don't know if the algorithm is that good though, because I keep getting advertisements for sex mints from Hims, and I'm like, I don't need that at
Whoa,
all. Yeah, I'm like, what was going on? So it's not perfect, people.
that just gave us some insight on you, buddy.
No, it's not me. Uh,
Just kidding.
so I want to back up here a little bit and say, how did you, or ask you, how did you go from teaching sixth grade to the mortgage industry to deciding that founding this company was the right path? How did you even know the mortgage industry was a viable thing, and why launch the company?
Well, it's probably like a lot of people who go into the mortgage, like it was not, my first degree was nursing. I wanted to be the Patch Adams of a hospital. For anyone, I may be dating myself, but it was a Robin Williams movie. And as I was getting my nursing degree, I was like, this is not what I thought it, like, I don't want to just do paperwork. And I love kids. I loved helping kids. And I was like, and they hate you because you're coming in with needles, or they've been burned, or they've been abused, and then they move on. Like I couldn't build a relationship with them. So I switched to education. And ironically, I did science because that is the only subject you're allowed to fail. Like an experiment could go absolutely wrong, and it was okay because it just led to new discovery and new truth, which is really how I applied really everything in my life, from all the wrong turns that I had made, but also wanting to teach these 7th and 8th graders how, like, making mistakes is part of succeeding, and you cannot learn or be the best at anything unless you lose and get things, wrong. And every loss that we would have, even when I coached girls athletics, is like, that's just opportunity for improvement. If we won every single game, how would we know what to work on every week? And so, it's doing the reps and being okay with reflecting and knowing that better will always beat best over time. So it's not about the best social media post. It's not even about tricking the algorithms anymore, because since we do video edits and we run the social media, platforms for a lot of LOs in the country, and a lot of them will subscribe to like the same video script service, and then we edit them. And so I started to do these tests where I even had Denise and I do, so that's my sister. We had the exact same title, exact same like hook, image, video, caption, post at the same time someplace, and we got different results. And it's because everybody's algorithm kind of has its own unique DNA, kind of like a credit score. You have a social rank score. But everyone could post like the exact same thing of this hook of how to go viral. And it's like, but each user has its own set of DNA where you're not going to get the same results, because it is based on the human behaviors of what people want to see. And right now, you have to have realistic expectations that our pool of people showing those behavioral interest online of buying or selling a home is a lot smaller than what it was just 2 years ago. So naturally, your reach or your impressions may be a little bit lower because it's based off human behavior. And so if you're competing with 5,300 posts every second, which you are, why would the algorithm show your post over one that I make about possibly mortgages? So I just wanted to add that in, and I'll get back to the how I went or got into mortgages, but it was not for the best of motive. I was pregnant with my third child. I wasn't supposed to be able to have kids, so all of them were surprises. That's a whole different story. But I had, I had 4 kids in 5.5 years. My husband was a teacher and a coach. I was a teacher and a coach. And I was like, one of us is going to have to do something different. And that's when my twin was like, have you ever thought about mortgages? You send me more closed deals a month than my top agent. And I was like, yeah, I'm just a natural connector. Like, I like finding who has a problem. I'm going to connect you to someone who cares enough to give the solution. But I was like, I am not a salesperson. Like, no way. I'm a servant. Like, I like to educate. That is my superpower. And Denise was like, that's all we do, is we basically educate. And she was really big on financial literacy and getting into the schools, kind of due to our upbringing. So she was the one that got me in and was like, this is what we're going to do. And I'm going to teach you mortgages, and you're going to do a lot of the education and training, which is what I loved. Like, that fueled my heart in front of agents or students. Cause believe it or not, Denise is very, like, she hates public speaking. She gets really nervous. She hates it. And she would try to get me to go on stage and pretend to be her. So I just ended up fulfilling that role and then learning how to do mortgages, which was not easy. That's how I got into it.
That's
Very
so,
cool.
yeah. Um, I am really curious, like on the financial literacy side, how, that is clearly a passion of yours. You were the very first ambassador, or not ambassador, but founder friend with First Home IQ. What has driven you around the education piece? Like, what is it that makes you excited about sharing financial literacy and content related to that?
Well, so my last couple years in the school district, I kept building my way up the chain, and I was a curriculum writer for many years, and then I was head of all of the science department for middle school. And that also was a big reason why I left. It's because I just didn't believe in what we were teaching anymore. I mean, it was almost like we were creating a bunch of arms and legs and not heads that could like critically think, which concerned me for the future. Now in Texas, we have financial literacy TEKS starting from second grade all the way throughout high school, where they start to like weave this in, but it wasn't quite, um, it's dependent on who's delivering the message and how much knowledge they had. And what I also realized is you then have to fight the conditional, you know, norms or patterns that then the parents of these kids, like, there was so much we could do to build these beautiful minds, but then it was either other influences of older descent, usually parents or grandparents, are like, yeah, but you can't do that. And so it was like this constant source of friction where I'm like, gosh, we've got to get to the adults because they almost ruin the kids, unfortunately. And so as soon as I heard what this was about and, meeting people and the kids in the classroom, whether it's high school or college, I'm like, this is my jam. This is all I know. It's what I've always done. It's what I'm passionate about. I have a side project that I'm working on for social media for student athletes, where helping them put their brand online so they can get recruited and whatnot.
Oh, wow.
And I just have always, I love kids. And because of our struggles with and not knowing how money works and credit works, and our dad not knowing how it works and how much it really hurt, some critical years of us getting ahead. Um, I just don't ever want any other child to go through that, or adult for that matter, who isn't equipped to know how to maybe give a different perspective and learn a new way if they're open to learning.
Mm. I think a lot of people today feel very hopeless around their financial situation, and especially home ownership. I mean, with interest rates rising, I don't know if you see this. My algorithm is like full of content of people like joking about the despair, like
Right.
they're like, yeah, there's no way I'm going to be able to buy a home in the future. And I am curious how you are helping people reach millennials who are feeling that way. I mean, how
Yeah.
do you create content that is helping to educate people and also not having them feel like, a way that is effective, that doesn't make them feel like they're, that this is something they can just skip over because it's out of reach for them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's a really good point because, and I find that this is harder for the LOs who have been in the business the longest. They almost, it's, it, so I say you have to start with empathy. You have to show empathy and kind of create this curiosity gap that allows people to be interested in where you're approachable and you're warm and they feel safe, where they can ask a question or shoot you a DM, where there is no obligation to buy. So it's that whole like show me that you know me button. And if you come across too knowledgeable, which is this is where it's not that you can't be knowledgeable, but there's a fine line between confidence and arrogance, and
Mm,
it can almost make people feel bad or even leave them more confused, where then they stay in that indecision point, which is horrible. Like at least a no, you know where they stand. But it's breaking it down where it's easy for them to understand, not using, industry jargon like what your FICO, DTI, LTV, like it is like, sometimes I get videos from my clients and I'm like, I'm not even following you. And I study this stuff. Like you're using words and charts that I know you think like the average person could probably follow along, but I'm confused. And so it's meeting them where they are and getting to the psychology of like, what are their pain points? What are their frustrations? What are you trying to accomplish with this post? Like, who is it meant for? How clear are you? Because we have multiple micro audiences within larger audiences. And so, do you know what is their biggest struggle with buying a home? Is it the down payment? Do they know that they can get gifted funds? What about, taking money from a 401k? While also realizing that they could be up against parents saying the last thing you should ever do is borrow from a 401k to buy a home. So it's creating shareable and savable content that they could send even to their parents to help. And that's what we see more of, is that the human behaviors of likes and comments have drastically decreased, but the sharing in the DMs has
Mhm.
increased. Because it's almost like these millennials and even Gen Zs, they may not be posting that much on social, but they are DMing things and sharing things with each other all day long, almost like replacing the text message app. So it's creating content that, when you share to your stories, you're giving people permission to interact with you in an informal way that's not like intrusive, like a text or a phone call, where they're just starting the process. So if you're not putting yourself out there on social and you're not creating posts that, can intrigue curiosity, then they may not reach out. Or if you come across like a know-it-all and make them almost feel bad or stupid or like put down, then they most likely won't engage with you. So it's understanding them at the core of like what makes their heart sing and why they do what they do, and realizing people make decisions twice. It always has to feel right for them to then for it to be right. Because there's times, I'm sure everyone on this call could agree that there's times where you've had a decision where logically it makes perfect sense, but we're like, "Ah, it just doesn't feel right." So it's like, how do you get them to feel? And that's where you have to kind of get to the EQ space, that it's not just about tell me what you think. How do you think? It's how does this make you feel? Like, do they feel connected to me? Am I building a community, or am I just trying to get 100,000 followers, which, followers doesn't mean revenue. It's like empty calories. It's like build a community. What do you stand for? So,
I'm with you there. It seems like even though the creation of content has gone down, the consumption has gone way up. I've noticed that with my own friends, they're posting less. But it seems like people are on and they're sending each other stuff all the time. I do have a question for you. There's like 5 or 6 Dirk Nelsons on this call. I need to free myself from the algorithm allegations. My Discover feed is like jokes and watches
yeah.
and soccer. There's no scantily clad women on my Discover feed. So there you go.
Oh, I see the Kelsey brothers.
Yeah, I'm big into the Swift
Yeah.
Kelsey thing. It's like all I talk to my girlfriend about these days. But I do want to ask you, like, my dad is a pretty well-known guy, very well-known guy in the mortgage industry. Zero social media, zero, none. He probably never will. He'll say my sister and I told him not to, which is kind of fair. But what are the ramifications for people not using it in this day and age when so many people are consuming content this way?
That's probably what like really hurts my heart the most is I think it's not always the best loan officer that gets the business. It's sometimes the most visible and most known. And so what can happen is when people go to social to learn and consume, and like I know there's a lot of different views and beliefs on TikTok, but like that is my favorite place to go to learn, to get micro like nuggets of content where the TikTokification of how people consume has really changed behavior in a big way. And it can be very powerful when you use it that way. But if you're not willing to put yourself out there, what can happen is people will end up learning, liking, following, and ultimately buying from somebody else simply because they were willing to put themselves out there and you weren't. And so there it's not like the traditional just one size fits all linear sales funnel anymore. Like, and that's why I almost cringe. And I'm the weirdo that actually like emails NAR and is like, I want to see the questions asked on this 129 report. And like, was it multiple choice? Could they choose more than one response? Like, where was this question that was asked? 'Cause I think it said that it was like 3% of the time people use social, to find their agent. I'm like, well, how was the question asked? Because what typically happens is they get someone's name, and this is even if an agent's referring a LO, and people are so trained to go to, just look at reviews between Yelp and Google, but they'll go to social and they'll land on, your feed. They'll scroll for a couple feet and they will never like or follow usually, because that would be creepy. And they do care about what you think of them because they're just trying to judge you. And they're usually judging you based off 2 things: warmth and competency. Like, can I trust you? Are you going to protect my self-interest? And in that moment that they feel safe and secure, that moment of influence, they then decide to contact you. But on a lead form, like in Encompass, where it says, how did you hear about us? They're going to say my real estate agent. But that wasn't necessarily the moment of influence that caused them to actually hit contact. And so how do you measure that? That's what's hard, is there's a lot of metrics that can't be measured because it's behavioral. And so a lot of times people will say it just doesn't work, or I think it's a waste of time. And so I've been giving talks really for this Q4 of how to flip the script and not be a consumer on social, but rather a producer. And like this whole nonsense of like posting and hoping that we get interactions, I'm like, no, we got to flip that. Like, you have to be passionately aggressive right now. Where at a time when most people aren't liking and commenting, I want you to do 20 likes on other posts a day, 20 comments. And when I say other posts, I mean it's like your top referral sources or people of high influence, where you can use this for, prospecting and building relationships, where sometimes the best way to be visible is just by showing up in that little red notification that says, oh, Kristen liked my post. And if I see that over and over, that's brand recognition of like, hey, she supports me. So I call it like online flirting a bit, but not like in the literal sense, but you're just warming it up, foreplay, until you go in, you build a relationship enough, and you build that know, like, and trust factor where now you can ask for the appointment, or they feel like they, know, like, and trust you. And so, but we have to be on offense for that. It can't just be defense. And that's what I see is a lot of people are either running the same plays that they did 2 years ago, like canned marketing messages that are from their CRM that's not valuable or relevant. And anything you're running from 2 years ago to today is not going to be relevant because the market should always dictate your marketing. But also we got to be on offense here. Like no more posting and ghosting and then complaining, I only got 6 new followers. I'm like, I see you got 6 new followers, but you didn't even say thank you or like reach out to them. Say, hey, appreciate the follow. Love your feed. Like that's an opportunity. Someone just followed you. And we don't even have the time. Like, at what point did we become so ungrateful for even just the follow that I'm like, 6 isn't enough? Like, how many follows did you give out today? Oh, okay. So you just expect to receive and you're not going to times 10 that activity. So there's some blocking and tackling that I call it. You'll probably love I give a lot of sports analogies, but I'm like, we've got to do some lightweight touches of the likes, the comments, the DMs, the adding value in different Facebook groups, being a better social listener, because that gives you cues of what content to create.
Yeah. I love the word that you said before around you're building community. Like community is so key to thinking about social media and anything that we're doing today. Like we're not in the refi boom anymore. And it's really important that you are building relationships in the platforms that people are using. And one of the data points that we gathered in the Next Gen Homebuyer Report was that I think it was 52% of people are accessing, or Gen Z, I think this was in the Gen Z report, we're accessing social media as their primary source of educational materials. And if you look at the breakdown, 70% were using Instagram as a trusted resource for education, around financial education specifically. And I think it's really, and TikTok has increased so much over the past year. I don't even want to quote that one because we gathered that one a few months ago, but I feel like this is so, it's important to know where your community is and engage with them there, and that just is like how it is today.
100%. And whenever I talk about community, I always give the example. Sometimes when I'm speaking, it's to the average age of most LOs or real estate agents. So they're usually a little bit older. So I give the reference of Harley Davidson, where I'm like, and this is no offense to anyone who may identify with this, but I'm like, where else could an overweight, middle-aged dude go to feel cool? Like you buy a Harley and you're instantly cool. It's like there's something about that outlaw, like it's not even the best motorcycle, but it's built such a community that no matter where you go across the country, it's this tribe that people feel like they belong and they have all the little hand signals. I don't know what they all are, but it's such a powerful brand that even Ford put that brand on their own brand. And there was a Harley Davidson edition truck that was made. So it's like, what is your tribe? Like you guys literally build communities one house at a time. So what is it that you stand for? And this time of year is a great time to get the community involved where maybe you're doing a sweater drive or you're doing a canned food drive for Thanksgiving. Like people like to contribute. It makes them also feel like they have a sense of purpose. And so maybe it's something with animals. If you're passionate about animals, like give opportunities once a month for some kind of community outreach that shows that it's beyond just mortgages for you. It's about serving this community. And, on top of that, I encourage my clients, the most effective strategy right now is I tell them if you host your show every Wednesday, it's the same time, same day, doesn't matter. Kind of like what we do for Mortgage Coach. It positions to people in the mind that even if I don't know who the guest is, I know it's going to be something valuable. But start an interview series where you're just interviewing other business owners and you're just being the source of connection, where maybe it's a neurologist that you could be taking a loan app for. And it's like, hey, every Wednesday I host a show. I'd love to have you on. We obviously help people buy homes in the community, but there's a lot of families that could be new to the area. And we could talk about things that you think would be most important for them. I'll ask you, it's very informal, Q&A. I'll ask what got you into this, practice. And maybe we could talk about ADHD and medication. And at what point should you bring your child to a neurologist? And you could do a family law attorney. You could do a CPA. It could be even a contractor of like how to winterize your home. Like some people don't know how to do that. So like just interviewing a contractor, and then you become that digital mayor of your community where you're also, when you post and you tag them, now you're getting in front of their trusted following and you're expanding your reach, very hyper focus. And it gives a community the reason to follow you beyond just those who raise their hand saying, I'm interested in buying or refinancing. And that's what I see that most loan officers do, is it's only about those who may be interested to buy now. And I'm like, but what about those who just decided to buy with you last week? What are you doing? Like, WTF, why should they follow you? That's what that means. Why to follow? You have to be building a community and like something that would make them want to belong to your, your tribe. So don't make it just about why now or why me.
I want to loop back to something we said at the start, since the show has flown by, and I really enjoyed talking to you. There's a lot of social media. It can feel overwhelming. And this is from someone who's not a professional at it. It seems like if I post somewhere, say TikTok, I can share to Twitter, I can share to Instagram, I can share to Facebook. For people that feel overwhelmed, what's the best like source place to start their content that they can easily distribute it to other platforms and share?
So do I have the ability to share my screen? And I'll just share. This was a slide of a presentation that I gave. This may be helpful.
Yes.
See if I can share.
Yeah.
So I think the first thing that it's working is I call this where to focus. When you're feeling overwhelmed, it's like they usually say, Deb, there's so many platforms. Where do I even begin? So based off the data, and again, this is United States data from 18 years and older. So it's not global data, because this looks very different when you look across the globe. And so there's two different measurements here. There's one of just the number of active users, and this would be your rankings. Facebook is number 1, YouTube's number 2, Instagram's number 3, TikTok's number 4. But then you have to look at average time spent per day on each platform. And then TikTok is number 1, YouTube is number 2, X is number 3, and Instagram is number 4. So from a where to focus standpoint, I will say YouTube needs to hands down be in your top list of like homework assignment number 1 before the end of the quarter. Google owns YouTube. What I love about YouTube is when people YouTube, they're usually meant to stay for a while. Like their motive is to learn. The only thing I dislike about YouTube is it's not great for community building, because you can't really like DM but it is from a productivity standpoint. You can create one video that is like, that is your non-paid sales associate working for you 24/7, 365. So we've got to first figure out, where is my target audience? And typically, even the loan officers that I serve, their largest following is Facebook. And there's a difference between a Facebook business page and your personal Facebook profile. And most don't know that you can turn on, it's called professional mode, on your personal Facebook profile. So if you have a personal Facebook and you're like, I always get more interaction on my personal profile than my business page, understand that's normal. Like most people aren't following business pages anymore, which is largely because they got sick and tired of the phantom ads that followed them. But you can turn on what's called professional mode, and now people can follow you even without having to friend request you, because you may be at max friend capacity. It also gives you insights on the posts that you create on, again, your personal profile. So it just opens up more analytics for you. But I would say if I had to focus on, the top 3 or 4, I would do Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. Usually, I won't go into this in too much detail unless you guys want me to, but step 1 of the process is your ideation phase. Like, how do I consume throughout the week so that I have an idea, like an idea bank, which is what I call right here. Like usually I'm having people create a brain dump list of like, what questions are you being asked throughout the week, before, during, or after the loan process, which could be to your underwriter, your funder, the title rep. Write that down. Like, maybe it's in the note section of your phone, or it's a certain notepad that is your spot to write those down. It's also, as you're consuming throughout the week, when you like or save something on social, you can always go back to show you what are the last post in the last week that I've actually liked or saved. And so when you create your idea list, then every Monday, what I have clients do is I tell them to time block a reoccurring, non-negotiable 1-hour time block with yourself. That is your time to create content, because I don't want the ideation and the creation part at the same time. That's where people, like, it almost takes different brain muscles to do this. So you want to separate it so that when you show up on Monday, you already have your bank of ideas. Now we're just filling them in based off our content pillars. And so the content pillars that are working right now are the ones in purple, and the ones in black are like the sub pillars to help you fill in, different pieces throughout the month. And so this is no different than like when people work out. Like Mondays could be, chest and tries, Tuesdays back and buys, Wednesday is cardio. So, always show up sick on Wednesdays because who likes cardio? But it basically gives you a framework and a focus of what to do. And so for Mondays, I say do housing market. People are obsessed with the housing market, whether it's national, always make sure you then include local on one of the Mondays. But like what are some of the trends? What are the updates going on? That's Monday. Monday, think of market updates. Tuesday, I call prove it. Like prove to me that you are who you say you are and that you'll do what you say you'll do by showing me evidence in your feed, because otherwise talk is cheap. And I'm thinking that's what everybody else is saying, or that's what my last LO said, especially if I'm a real estate agent. Oh, every LO says they have great communication. Every LO says, we go above and beyond and we really care. So if you do, then prove it. I want to see screenshots from like clients that prove, or like a TCA that proves you actually go beyond just rate, payment, cash to close. You're actually educating people beyond like, how does my decision today impact me over time? Wednesdays is the collaboration day that we had talked about. Thursdays is storytelling. And what I would prefer for Thursdays is for people to client, let's say it was a first time home buyer from 2 years ago. And it's like, hey, Kristen, I know you were really nervous when we first spoke 2 years ago because you had been renting, and making that leap of faith to become a homeowner when you're used to like renting your clothes and not even knowing how to get out of a car note, like something like a 30-year commitment probably scared you to death. And even though everyone was telling you don't do it, like why would you ever pay 50,000 over list price? Are you crazy? I just want to interview you, or let's share your story where you could help others who may be in your current position that had you listened to everybody else and you waited. Here's what the purchase price of that home would have been today. Here's what the rate would have been. Here's how much equity you would have lost. And so it's giving your clients permission to share their story, which is actually your mission and your value, but you're sharing it through them, almost like user generated content. It makes it more, it's not you selling you, it's having people share their story of what homeownership means to them, which isn't always for financial wealth. Sometimes it's security, stability, a place where you can fart in your own sheets and it doesn't matter. Like sometimes people aren't always thinking of wealth. They just want to have something that they call their own. Fridays is financial literacy. That is a little bit broader. So having some of your pillars that are a little bit broader that can appeal to people who may be interested in how credit works, but it may be because they're about to buy a car, may not be for a home. Regardless, financial literacy, credit, money management, retirement, savings, people need this. And then Saturdays, I always say throw in a personal post. Who are you outside of just the loan officer that can make people be like, oh, you have a dog, I have a dog, I like you because we both like dogs. That helps build the relatability factor. And Sundays are memes or thoughtful thoughts, like thought leadership, personal development, because those are the most shared pieces of content on the web. Anything comical and anything inspirational. Again, that's broad. It's super relatable. It shows a little bit of depth and diversity to who you are. But then to answer your question on the distribution aspect, we actually built a scheduling tool. I know a lot of people in the tech space to help with this, but we have our own social media tool. It's $99 a month, or you can pay for it for the year, where basically you can post to all platforms. It's unlimited posts, unlimited pages, groups. And all I would have to do is create one post. I drag and drop it on the day of the week that I want to post it. And it has AI to read the type of post, like, is this a reel? Is it a long or short reel? Does it have a caption, no caption, hashtags, no hashtags? And it basically synthesizes all of that data and it'll auto post for you on all the platforms based off when your audience is most active. So this is how I tell people, we should be everywhere every day, but not physically everywhere every day. So there's tools out there that have AI. Ours also integrates with ChatGPT. We've been getting that question a lot. But I'm not wanting people to waste their time like manually posting when half the time they don't even know how to read their own insights to know when should I be posting at the right time. So hopefully that content counter can help give some that are listening just the framework, or at least some focus of maybe how to build out your content pillars as well as, a systematic way for the ideation part and the distribution, because that's the 3-step process to creating content.
That is incredible. Thank you so much for sharing. That's
Yeah.
so rich. I am going to have this clipped so that we can share this on, in the First Home IQ platform and other places. But I think I feel relief just seeing that laid out in that way. It feels manageable.
Hmm. And that's what it is. It, like, kind of, the teacher in me, I guess, like I taught all on level. I'm like, give me all the kids nobody else wants. Like, give me the troublemakers, the worst ones, special ed, ESL. And I would teach these really complex concepts that they don't care about, like moon phases, they didn't care about. The periodic table, I had to do like, this would be the Jersey Shore group. This is the Brady Bunch group. And they didn't even know who Brady Bunch was. I was like, holy shit, I'm old. But it's just breaking it down to where it's manageable. And then again, going back to the elephant example, commit to just maybe one day, like start with Mondays as your market updates. And what I do love about social is it does have a sense of accountability. Like when people say, I just don't know what to say, or if you're committed to creating content, that means you got to study your trade and have something that you've learned to then share. So that's the other thing I love about social is it's helping loan officers become better advisors because it's forcing them to study the content.
Yeah.
Um, can I just add one thing to that?
Yeah,
Because I
of
feel
course.
like I've got to, most of the time people ask me then, well, if we need to post every day, what do we post? And this is part of the strategy is, and this would be for explosive growth. So nobody freak out when you see this. But like Facebook or Instagram, there's multiple different features, and it's important to know their benefits of why you would post certain formats. So, like for Reels, that is great for discovery when you're trying to grow your visibility. As we know, the algorithms push the short form video content. DMs are great for connection. Your feed posts are great for nurturing your current audience. So, for stories, I mean, ideally, you want like at least 3 stories a day. It's just the day in the life of what you do that, again, allows people to connect with you where it only lasts for 24 hours. It doesn't have to go on your feed. But it's just like behind the scenes footage of your reality show, essentially, of what you feel comfortable showing. 1 to 3 reels a week, 1 to 2 carousel posts. Now, I will say for most people, if you guys go to your Explore feed right now, you're probably seeing more carousel posts in your Explore feed because this is getting favorited. There's like 2 or 3 carousel posts per reel and per single image post, but they each still serve a purpose, and not everyone learns best from a video. They need diagrams because they're visual learners. 100 comments a day, that's a little excessive. But if you've ever wondered why you see certain people on your stories more frequently than others, like why is Deb always showing at the top? Like I follow 5,000 people and I keep seeing that she's always up here. That's simply because the algorithm knows that you guys have been liking or commenting or DMing each other frequently, that it will show you more content of those that it thinks you have a relationship with, which is again why I think we need to flip the script and be on offense and like, who do you want to be seen by? Go like and comment on their post. And then naturally, when you post, you're going to get more visibility from those people that you want to be seen by being strategic with your post. Collaborations, these are like the Wednesday show days, when you can tag a collaborator. And then lives. What I love about lives is it gives grace. Like no one expects you to be perfect. You don't have to have great studio equipment. And again, it's a way to build community and connection because people can ask you questions while you're live. So that was a lot. Sorry. I just felt like that I had to add that in because that's part
No,
of the
that's
strategy
good.
with
This
the
is
content.
comprehensive.
You're
Yeah.
right. Real quick note for people, because I didn't register for me first. A carousel is a post that has multiple images or videos in it that you swipe across rather than just a
Yes.
single image.
Yes.
This is amazing. We're way past time. Thank you for the people that.
Sorry. I could go
Oh,
on for
we can talk.
Do
We can
not
talk
be
to you all day
sorry.
long. This is
Yeah.
amazing.
I want to mention recordings are coming. We have something in the works, so you'll get an email announcement about that, and we'll post about it on LinkedIn. And definitely we'll be sharing this one. And again, want to just like encapsulate this comprehensive social media review. I so appreciate you spending the time. People can follow you and reach out to you. What's the best way?
Instagram is probably the best. So, the business handle is plug_and_play_SM. My personal profile is Deborah A. Byrd. I do always warn people, like, follow at your own risk, because that is my account. That's like my expression or my art. I literally post whatever comes to my head. So, nothing is ever meant to be offensive. It's just my brain. I think it's funny. So I would say follow at your own risk on that one. But Plug and Play SM is the one that we create educational content every single day to help you stay on the train of how, the algorithms or the mediums update almost as often as interest rates, guys. So
good.
make sure you follow and stay on the updates.
Yes. And then last thing I wanted to mention is that we are opening the doors to another round of ambassadors with First Home IQ. I'll update everyone next week, but that if you are interested in being on that list, please go to firsthomeIQ.com/industry partners. You can go to firsthomeIQ.com and click on LO at the top, and it will take you to the ambassador page. Or feel free to reach out to me. But we're really excited about the development of the program, have lots of strategies to support people in generating more business through reaching the next generation and, of course, having an impact. So, but yeah, thank you all for staying on longer today, and I hope you all have a really great Thanksgiving. Anything else, Robbie?
Where can people find the recording, or we'll email it to them?
Yeah, that's we don't have a process for that yet, so we're working on building that out. But as soon as we do, we will send that out via email. So
awesome. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Deb, thank you so much.
everybody.
This is fantastic.
You're welcome.
All right, bye.